A question that I hear a lot is about marching. And one of the most frequent doubts about marching is whether marching does anything to help us save democracy. And frankly, I had the same question some time ago. So I went into a journey to search for an answer, and I'm going to share what I discovered with you here today. Hi, I am Maria Mar, author, poet, artist, shaman, and citizen leader, which is what we need to become, right, in order to rescue our democracy. I am here today in the Alchemy Atelier to support you in becoming the storyteller, the author of your life, and to help you join those who are changing the narrative of this country by fighting for democracy. As I said, my quest to discover the answer to our question took me into two journeys. And the first one was about discovering why nonviolent resistance. Does it work? The why to nonviolent resistance. And then the second took me to understand, it took me into a journey of leadership training, non-resistance, non-violent resistance leadership training, right? So I'm going to share those discoveries with you. First, I'm going to ask you a question that I had to ask myself at the beginning. Ready? Why am I doubting that peaceful marching works? Historically, I see that it works when I consider the anti-Vietnam War or the civil rights movements, those two movements. So why am I doubting that it will work now in the present situation? And what I discovered about that is that the reason I was doubting that peaceful marching would work at this moment is because what we're experiencing right now is so cruel and so violent that it falls into the inhumane. So if these people do not have empathy and do not care for life, then all they understand is violence, right? So what could a peaceful demonstration do to defeat them? They're going to just laugh at it. Does this resonate? Could this be part of what is happening inside you that creates the doubt? In my journey, I met two women that sought to answer the same questions that I had. They were Erika Chenoweth, a human rights and international affairs professor, and Maria Stefan, a lawyer focused on diplomacy. And Erika and Maria decided to do a research to engage in a study of nonviolent resistance. And they discovered that nonviolent resistance was twice as successful as violent resistance movements. Twice as successful as violent resistance movements. Not only that, right, but nonviolent resistance helped to restore the democratic state after the defeat of the coup. And it did it much more easier and quicker than when the resistance had become violent. So the researchers were very surprised with these outcomes, and so was I, and so were a lot of people who studied read the study, and they had to accept it because it was proven time and time again over time. So keep this in mind. Keep this understanding of the success rate of nonviolent resistance as we move further into this journey with me. Okay, so I went into nonviolent leadership training, and when during that training, I learned something that completely changed the way I see what is happening and the way I respond to what is happening. And it was this. In order to claim democracy from the pause of a democratic backsliding, we need to develop strategic mindset that empowers us to respond strategically and to build momentum for the regime's crumbling. In other words, it's not about matching brute force with brute force, but about using brains instead of brawn. We cannot just react to the moves of the destroyer in the White House. We need to respond strategically. And for that, we need to have a mindset a strategic mindset. It's like we're not playing Chinese checker, we're playing chess. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you defeat a brutal opponent. This is a message that has come down through the ages through the story of the battle of David and Goliath. David versus Goliath, right? It was not that David beat Goliath with one tiny pebble. It was that he shot that tiny pebble into a strategic place that made the giant crumble. Yoo-hoo! Flip it! Flip it! Flip that perception. That is strategic mindset. Okay. All right. So the destroyer in the White House has a cruel ice Gestapo, right? Number one. He has the military for now. He also has executive presidential authority, and wants more and more every time, and the resources of the government. So that's 4 advantages. Plus, he has the oligarchy that pours millions into everything he does, right? So that's 5. And not to mention a court of sycophants for a cabinet. So he has those. Those are his advantages, his leverage. Ouch, that's a lot, right? So what do we have? We don't have that level of gunpowder, and most Americans' families abhor violence and don't have the luxury to join a sustained violent guerrilla warfare. So we cannot fight that way. That's not our way. Right? So we need to fight with our strengths. And the leverage we have is the heart of democracy. It is the fundamental authority of we the people stated in our Constitution. We are the ultimate authority in our democracy. And we need to understand that, because we're looking for somebody who has authority because we're used to looking for authority in the political establishment. But the ultimate authority is we the people. Right. So then our strength also is about massive numbers to the tune of 300 million. And I'm allowing a lot because of MAGA and other factions and whatever. But still, we have huge numbers. And we also have freedom of expression right now. We have freedom of expression, which includes freedom of assembly and protests. Those are our leverages. We the people also have an abundance of creativity, adaptability, and huge talent, genius, and skills galore among our population. Remember, even the military is part of we the people. Lastly, but not least, we hold the strings of the national purse. If we don't work, the country doesn't produce money. If we don't consume, the flow of money stops. That's a huge power. And we need to learn to use it strategically. Remember, strategy is the key word here, right? So these are considerable powers. And when we use them strategically, then peaceful protests and nonviolent massive marches become huge leverage for our success. At a strategic level, nonviolent massive protests are living, moving experiences of the collective will of we the people. The numbers in those events are a visual indicator of the degree to which the country shares that position of the march. So it's like when people from all over the world, when politicians are looking at that march, those huge numbers of people, they are looking at the will of we the people. Studies of modern popular resistance movements of countries suffering from a democratic backslide or trying to defeat a tyrant indicate that, number one, countries where resistance campaigns were nonviolent were 10 times as likely to transition to democracy compared to countries where the resistance was violent. And that happened whether it was they won immediately or it was a longer term battle. They had more opportunities, 10 times the chances of going back to democracy. That's number one. Number two is the rule of thumb of the 3.5% that I'm going to explain here now. When the nonviolent resistance movement can sustainably, not just one time, but sustainably generate massive events that reach a participant threshold of 3.5% of the total population, the chances of defeating the tyrant move closer to the level of inevitability. I like that. All right. The other key factor, that's number three now. The other key factor that supports democratic success is the building of a wall of non-compliance from civic institutions, corporations, and groups. Groups like veterans, teachers, faith leaders, others. So when there is a wall of non-compliance, from a majority of institutions and corporations and groups, that is a key component, together with the 3.5% of the population marching. Right. So here's where the rubber meets the road. Massive numbers to the tune of 3.5% of the population, in the case of the US, would be over 11 million. Send the message to the country and to everybody that the country, the people, will not tolerate the regime, that it will not cooperate, and that the regime will crumble. So when we go out to march, and we march millions of people, the message that we're sending is that we will not surrender our democracy. This, in turn, lets institutions know that if they choose to comply, they will lose public support and money. Because remember, they are afraid to lose funding, but then, you're not going to lose funding from other sources, right? So they know now there's a pressure there to not comply. And also, they know that this regime is going to crumble because look at this opposition, right? So I'm going to be held accountable. And that helps shift the loyalties away from the coup. And this pressures the institutions to opt for non-compliance and to stand up to the regime. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what creates the wall of non-compliance that becomes a huge obstacle to the advance of the regime. No one is complying. Everybody's defying them. What happens? They cannot operate. Checkmate. Right? So these two things combine, massive involvement, resistance, protests to the tune of 3.5, and the wall of compliance are the factors that crumble an authoritarian coup, regardless of how many guns they have. This is what happens now. The moment we start thinking strategically, we realize that we have the advantage. And how to use it. Okay, so let's call this strategic level, this principle that we have just realized, the David versus Goliath principle. So we don't forget it. We'll always remember that little David and that huge Goliath, and David just took a little tiny pebble, bing, sent it exactly in the right point strategically, and the Goliath collapsed. Keep that image in your heart. Okay, so now we're going to explore the democratic level. Right. So at the democratic level, marches and protests are the living practices of free speech. Your presence is your vote. Your poster expresses your position. It is living, breathing expression of your position in response to certain issues. In this case, many issues, right? The whole regime. It is, and participating in a march, by the way, participating in this march or protest establishes your citizens' will beyond your vote. And it is your democratic right. The right to dissent and express your dissension. So when you express yourself in this march and protest, you are empowered as a citizen, and you are voicing your position to the elected officials, to the government, to the public, to the world to see. So for a minute, imagine somebody in Canada, in Europe, watching millions of Americans marching with protests that they say no king. We do not have kings here. Hands off America, hands off democracy. What are they seeing? What's the message that we're sending internationally? And what the message that we're sending to this regime? It's very clear and powerful. Right? So this is the heart of democratic participation. A citizen's participation in democracy is not just voting every 4 years. And that's what has happened. We became passive. That's part of why we're here. We became passive citizens. That's why I say that I'm a newly mentored citizen leadership, because I've had to realize this and change. And I'm training myself as a citizen leadership. And I invite you to do the same. And all of this is how we do it, right? All right. So it's not just to vote, but the way I see it is to be active in the creation and development of the means by which the government execute the will of the people. And also to express alternate or minority perspectives, because that enriches what we're doing, right? So it just not, it can no longer be that I vote and then, the leaders do these things out there. We need to evolve democracy. We need to participate more. And with all these technological means, we the people could to be very active. We have conversations. We could have study groups. We could, you know what I'm saying? We could have people committees. We need to expand and evolve our vision of democracy. And this is helping us see what's wrong. This is, you see how everything changed for me, the perspective of what's happening when I started thinking strategically. Okay, so what else I have to say? So in other words, it's like our protest is telling our leaders, hey, you're off course. You're going off. Course correct, please. So that you align with why we voted for you, with what is our intention. This is that is what we're really saying with our protests. All right. Consider also that when a government starts repressing peaceful protests, that is a clear sign of anti-democratic stance. So at this moment, our participation in peaceful protest is a litmus test of the state of our democracy, and a collective declaration that democracy is not dead because we are fighting for it and we will not give up. And when the people send this message, tyrants tremble. Now let's explore what happens at the community and local level. Because these national protests create a channel for community and local participation that extends way beyond the event itself, right? And it gives also liberates the expression of the communities, that then they can help mobilize citizens. They can engage in other forms of resistance or support, such as boycotts, local demonstrations, communication campaigns, and other actions that shape direct public opinion towards specific changes or causes. And you may not be aware of this because the media is sabotaging with the people. They're covering up everything that the community is doing. But across the state, in almost every state, including red states, and local community, and even rural communities, there is stuff happening. There are events happening every week. There are Tesla takedowns. There are boycotts. They are coming together to create events, spontaneous protests. There is so much happening in this country that I just feel very sad when people say, well, there should be a movement or there's nothing happening. There is a movement. There is a unified, cross-partisan, massive, nonviolent, pro-democracy movement. How do you think these events happen? Not by themselves, right? And there's people fighting for democracy. There's 5 million people actively fighting for democracy at this moment. And they're doing it at the community and the local level. And then we get together at the national level. So when you see these marches don't happen just by themselves. They are the product of months and years of work in the communities. And it's a coherent, strategic work. Okay, so let's explore that at the personal level. When you get out of the couch, you shake off your apathy or your fear or your overwhelm, and you join a protest or march. You suddenly stop feeling alone and helpless in the face of all this nightmare. Instead, you feel empowered and energized You experience unity. And you're working with other people who feel and want what the same as you do, and you feel, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. All this thing that this we can do this together. So your courage goes up, your fear comes down, and your capacity for citizen participation expands. Look at all those benefits, right? So then you realize, oh, wait a second, I could get together with other people and form a group for this and that and that. I could do this activity, like I have a group, it's called Storytellers Indivisible, right? Because I'm a storyteller and because I realize that we need to change the narrative because the media is not covering the stories of the people, right? So we have to cover them. We have to become the storytellers, right? So I did, and some other people have other groups, they meet and together and they create the local groups. There are some state groups there, and then we all meet nationally in the protest together. I mean, not necessarily locally, but together we create a national event. So that's what's happening here. Okay. When you do this, your whole energy vibration goes up. It's an uplifting of your vibrational frequency, to put it in my shaman talk. And you start feeling hope, joy, belonging, strength, and you start seeing things different, like what happened to me. You start seeing and seizing possibilities and opportunities that this crisis presents in the form of evolutionary change for humanity, for democracy, and for the planet. You see how the perception flips because you're seeing something with new eyes, because you're no longer feeling helpless or trapped or focusing only in what they're doing to you or what is wrong. It's magical. All right. Okay, so do your best. Do your best to join the nonviolent pro-democracy movement and to go to the marches, especially the national marches. The next massive protest is this Saturday, October 18th. This Saturday, October 18th, this No Kings 2 event promises to be the largest national protest in our history. As of today, because I just checked, as of today, October 16th, there are 2,500 events nationwide, and there's probably going to be more because they keep, they keep growing very fast as people start organizing in different communities um, uh, and joining. And there's a map, and you're going to see the map. I'm going to give you a link, and I'm going to leave you the link below in the description. When you get there, you're going to see a map, and then you put your zip code, or I think you can also put your city, and they show you how many events, and then you can click on the map and find out the address and time and all of that, right? So, and in New York, I'm a New Yorker. In New York, we have, the last I checked, 127 events, right? So this is huge. Not only in the let's say that I'm looking at New York, I'm participating in the New York March. It's going to be huge, but that's not just, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because there's 126 other events just in New York, and then there's thousands of events across the nation. All right. So remember, get the link below. And by the way, you can dress in yellow, okay, which is a symbolic color for the No Kings, and it represents hope, courage, and the belief that democracy is worth fighting for. All right. So I hope that this answered your main questions about attending a march and if it makes a difference. I will include more information about marches and other tactics in my upcoming video series, The People versus Fascism, a battle of perception. And that those are going to be 3 videos from the perspective of me as a shaman and artist and citizen. All right, and you can subscribe to the Artemi Atelier to stay in touch when they're ready. As always, I thank you for being your unique, fabulous self, and for being here with me today. Mwah!